to be situated right between these powerful brothers, these titans of truth today, is very, very touching to me to be able to share transparency. Really appreciate all these dear brothers from another mother, especially Brother Travian Shorters, the BB community for allowing me to be able to be here, and of course, the Miami Book Fair, Brother Marlon Hill, and so many other great individuals who put this together. So I definitely do greet you with the words of hello, but of course I'm from Detroit, and I have to greet you in the native tongue and vernacular of what we use from north to, well, the east side to the west side. So I just say to you, what up, though? What up, though? It's rare that you get men to talk on a panel like this outside of women's sports and money. So it's great to be able to talk about literacy and males writing as in a culture, in a climate, in a community as which we are facing now. It seems as if we're living in the United States of amnesia, because so many people fail to remember that over 200 plus years ago, it was illegal for black people to read. You'd be maimed, you'd be killed, you'd be lynched. In some shape or form, you would be brutalized, because the oppressor understood that if I free you mentally, automatically the physical chains will have to come off in some way, shape, or form. And so now we're living in an age where chains are no longer metal, but now they're mental. And so to be able to give each other freedom through the power of literacy, through the power of reading and understanding that readers are leaders, you can't really lead until you engage in reading. And they say, if you want to hide something from a black person, do what? See, we perpetuated that negative stereotype and notion. Brother Travian Shorter says this. He says, if you don't know who you are, people will tell you what you're not.
Yes, that's right.
And oftentimes when people tell you what you're not, after you've heard it so much and it's been streamed in your mentality, it begins to become a part of your DNA. It becomes a part of your reality. And so I believe we have to change the narrative by sharing our truth and by sharing our stories. Since I'm from Detroit, I think I've got some Caribbean people in here. Do I have some? Yeah, no problem. I lost the accent, but I grew up in Kingston, Jamaica for part of my life. My father's from Aruba, and it was a part of the British education, which was just so replete and became the foundation for my education. I came back to the States after living there in Jamaica for some time. My mother's a missionary and a minister to the island. I got my cousin here, Ariane. She's here on my father's side. So to be able to come back here to the States, and the education system here in America is really a cesspool compared to many of even the underdeveloped countries around the world, even though Jamaica being a third world country, 1.8 million people or so. To be able to come back here and engage in education, which became the litmus for who I am and who I'm responsible for becoming. Growing up in a single parent divorced household, it really changed my perception about a lot of things in life, because I began to see, even though my father prior to the divorce was physically present, in many cases he was mentally, spiritually, relationally absent. And so the search for masculinity, the search for identity, really became something to the degree of what I searched for to develop who I was. At the age of 15, I faced one of my greatest hurdles and circumstances, and oftentimes when we're raising young boys, regardless of race or ethnicity or background, we often tell them, we don't cry. The boy falls off a bike at the age of 4. Tell him, you a man, get up. No, he's a boy, he's 4, he's not 44. And so we don't often share with our young brothers, it's okay to cry, but after you wipe your tears, this is what you have to do. And for many years, I was crying internally because of what I was void of. Feeling void of love, feeling void of validation. And at the age of 15, I faced one of my greatest hurdles and circumstances. I was a sophomore in high school at this time. I was really becoming lethargic and negligent in school. Really began to get negative on myself. And I was having pain inside my body internally. And oftentimes what we're told in society is vulnerability is femininity. Vulnerability is not true masculinity. And that's totally untrue. And for me to not want to be vulnerable and share what was going on. I was experiencing these chest pains. Long story short, my friend takes me over to, his mother takes me over to the hospital. I can't breathe by halftime watching the Rose Bowl game. They take me to the hospital, IVs everywhere, you name it. They do a CT scan of the chest and they see that there's a mass that's growing in my body. They cut me open, they see my cells in my body are growing so fast they can see them growing with the naked eye. Around my heart, my trachea, my esophagus, my voice box, the place I'm speaking to you out of right now. Felt great coming out of surgery, and the doctor says, Eddie, we have a diagnosis for you. He says, Eddie, you have NHL. Now, for me being 15 years old, I don't really have much prior knowledge of anything other than what NHL means. For me, I thought I hit the Powerball, never played the lottery. I said, I'm getting ready to be the youngest owner of a National Hockey League team, and I don't even like the sport. He says, no, sir, no, son, you have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He says, you have not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. I think LeBron said that before he left. Not 1, not 2, not 3. I'll leave that alone. He's in Cleveland. He's cold, so I'll leave that alone. You don't need LeBron or Dwayne Wade or Chris Bosh. You got us. So, long story short with that, I'm experiencing these chest pains. The doctor says you have stage 4 cancer. I said, I'm a young black male, 15 years old. Why me, why now? He doesn't even give me an opportunity to really ask myself that question. He steps in and interrupts my thinking process and says, son, don't ask why. I'm like, you're my physician, not my psychologist. And so for the next 18 months, close to 2 years, I went through chemotherapy and radiation. Y'all see these waves today? Not only did I lose my hair, but I lost my self-esteem, my self-confidence, my zest for life. If I'm telling you today that I believed I was going to live every single day that I was getting chemo and radiation streaming through my veins, I'm lying to you. It's a lot of days of difficulty, depression, dismay, and mental discombobulation, to where even my own biological father never visited me one day in the hospital. I'm a living witness. People who you think are praying for you are oftentimes praying on you, sitting on the sideline expecting your demise. But if it wasn't for a praying mother who told me, son, you got to believe that you can overcome. You got to find the first 3 letters in cancer spells what? Can. You can overcome. You can survive. She told me to go to God's word. Psalm 118:17 says, you shall not die, but live and declare the works of the Lord. And so to understand and know that every second in America, 2 to 3 people are diagnosed with cancer. 1 in every 1,000 teenagers. To be that statistic. To move from statistic to standout. To let people know that you don't have to be a stereotype, you can be a prototype. To let young brothers know that you don't have to be a young thug, you're a young scholar. You don't have to go to prison, you can go to Princeton. You don't have to do 4 years in a prison house, you can do 4 years at Morehouse. You don't have to go to jail, you can go to Cornell and Yale. To let young brothers know that you are not a detriment, but you are determined. You have what it takes to make it. Beating cancer and coming out of it, felt great, sat in my guidance counselor's office. She didn't look as good as yours, but I sat in my guidance counselor's office at the age of 17, and she looks at the time, she looks at me, she looks at my grades, she looks at the time, she looks at me again. She says, Eddie, you're not going to college. She said, matter of fact, don't even think about community college, pick up a trade. She was looking at my low ACT score, she was looking at my low GPA. She was looking at where I was, but she didn't see where I could be. And a lady who's supposed to be a guidance counselor gave me everything but guidance. And what I did is I said, I'm not going to go negative on the negative because I've already beat cancer. Surely I can find some way to get to college. And what I began to do in my essay, I went to Eastern Michigan University on probation. And I began to, actually my essay is what got me into college. And by writing my story, I discovered that writing became therapeutic for me. It was a place for me to get my bitterness out. It was a place for me to understand in order for me to live, I have to forgive. To move from bitter to better. If I see some of y'all got water bottles on your tables here. If Beyonce was here, you sure enough have a glass of lemonade. Because you have to understand that really in order to get lemonade, to make something sweet out of life, you got to deal with the bitter situations. You got to know how to turn some lemons into lemonade. And so what I said, I'm going to turn the negative into the positive. And I wrote my essay and I got to college. And not only graduated from college once, twice, but 3 times to get a PhD, but for that same lady, it stood for a player-hater degree. You see, people will doubt you, but you can't let that stop you. That's right. And a person who wasn't supposed to go to college and now be a professor at Marygrove College, teaching literacy and leadership, to teaching a class on social justice, and empowering our people to move their life to the next level. I began to write my story. I never wanted to be a writer at all. My mother told me, she said, you got to write your story, son, because it's not just for you, but it's to help somebody through what you've been through. And I wrote my story as a senior in college with really $1 and a dream to my name. And I began to put my pain on paper and to turn into what will empower you. And I wrote my latest book, My Brother's Keeper, which really touches on the whole aspect of what Frederick Douglass says. And he says, if we build strong children, we won't have to repair broken adults. I like to say, if we build strong boys, we won't have to repair broken men. And oftentimes, as what Dr. King said, if we fail to live together as brothers and sisters, we're going to perish together as fools. We're either going to hang separately or hang together. And at the end of the day, empowering people to overcome obstacles and realize their purpose and their destiny really became the fundamental principle. I developed a literacy program in my master's program coming out of that about literacy and leadership. I taught high school for 11 years and began to see oftentimes when young boys open a book, they close their eyes. They don't see any value in what they read. Walter D. Myers wrote this. He wrote over 100 books. He said, books transmit values. If I'm not in the book, what does that say about my value? And so I believe one thing that we have to engage in is culturally relevant pedagogy. Really, CRP is CPR. It breathes life into helping our young people see their lives reflected in what they read. Because yes, we want our young people to read The Great Gatsby, it's required reading, but we need to put some books in their hand that reveal to them their greatness, that show them how to move from the streets to the suites, that show them how to not just ball out on the court, but also ball out in the classroom, to understand that, guess what? As Brother Travian Shorter suggested, that 95% of wealth in the black community doesn't come from bouncing a basketball, rapping on a microphone, dropping it like it's hot, twerking in the video. Beans, greens, tomato, I'm gonna leave that alone. You name it. It don't come from any of that. What it does come from is people galvanizing greatness and using what they have to develop who they are, because literacy has to be that foundational element to where it becomes practical. And so to be able to look at the journey and to really, what My Brother's Keeper also speaks to is the fact that oftentimes men in society have been perpetuated just to have an S on our chest. I have a chapter here called Superman Syndrome. And oftentimes the S on our chest doesn't mean we're Superman or that we're strong. Oftentimes it means that we're struggling. And we have to find a place to where we remedy the issues, especially living in a culture and a climate where illiteracy and incarceration are oftentimes so interconnected. We're living in an era of a new Jim Crow now, to where it's incarcerating our young men, to where it keeps them locked out of opportunity because it doesn't want to unlock the doors to their purpose. And so this book speaks to those issues that many of us are facing. I brought some other material with me as well, Purposefully Prepared to Persevere, which shares my journey of really how to find the can of cancer. The fact that everybody has a gift. In my other book as well, Unwrap the Gift in You. And Pablo Picasso says the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give your gift away. The book of Proverbs says your gift will make room for you and bring you before great men. Everybody in here is a red box and a gold bowl. You're a gift to the world. The tragedy is to be gifted, but never open the box. Because the richest place on the planet is not Bill Gates' house. I know he's $56 billion liquid. It's not Oprah Winfrey's house, and I know she basically owns everything. It's not LeBron James' house. The king got his third ring, but it's none of that. The richest place on the planet is your local cemetery. Because so many people die with mellifluous, melodious, euphonious gifts on the inside of them. Books that they've never written, songs that they've never sang and released and never gave birth to that. And so we have to use that gift to be able to galvanize a movement and be able to empower people to move to their next level. My other book as well, these are just 4 of my 6, is Heal Your Heart. And really you can't deal with situations, you can't really heal from anything that you don't deal with. And the first step to that is admittal. It's saying, this is the issue that I'm dealing with. This is what is taking place. This is what is transpiring in my life. You can't really talk about healing if you haven't been hurt. You can't talk about breakthrough if you haven't been broken. And our relationships in life stem the tide of really, are we going to the next level or are we staying where we are? I like to say, because this book is, I like to say it's strong enough for a man, but it's made for a woman. And that is, ladies have to understand their value, know their worth, because they are a queen. Every sister ought to give another sister a high five and they're telling you a queen or something. That's right. All the divas. Because queen is defined as quintessentially unique, empowering everyone naturally. That's what a queen does. Quintessentially unique, empowering everyone naturally. She speaks to the king in a man. She empowers him to move his life to the next level and recognize his greatness and know his worth. And so these are all books. You need to get everybody's book on the panel, but definitely these are some books that you need to add to your library, that you need to get as many as you can carry, as Brother Shaka Senghor says, to be able to invest in yourself, know your worth. We buy so many things that just lose value, but we need to place information and wisdom in our lives so that we can engage in an intergenerational transfer of not just wealth, but wisdom. You got a Gucci belt. You got a Benz. You pulled up to the scene with your cylinder missing. But what can you pass on to the next generation? Because if you can help somebody as you travel along, then your living shall not be in vain. So I appreciate you for the opportunity.